You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The clink of wine glasses were the music of the party because none was provided. And there wasn't any music assigned to a party. Everyone knew that it was a precursor to something show-stopping. Men dressed in elegant suits and women in exquisite gowns filled the ballroom. Each person wore porcelain doll's masks on their faces. The crowd murmured with excitement at the prospect of what was going to be the twist for tonight's festivities. A man in an all-black suit and the only black doll mask called attention to himself in the gathered crowd of partygoers. Hello, esteemed friends. Welcome to our parole board hearing event. First, I'd like to introduce you to our board. The man in black retrieved a remote from his vest pocket. A wall slid away, revealing paneling to uncover a huge theater-sized television. The image instantly showed a clearing from an overhead vantage. There were a group of men in orange jumpsuits wandering about, confused as to why they were there at all. The bewildered men heard the ghastly cackle of unidentified beasts. The men stood there longer than was wise due to lack of clarity. All the while, the two beasts of massive size pounced two terrified prisoners. They were huge as horses, brownish with black spots. Their cackles were a mockery of human voices. Conventional wisdom would have you believe their faces were animal-like, but their features were human, overgrown with fur. Their teeth were oversized and too numerous to close its mouth. The two huge beasts cackled with an unearthly glee when it ripped into the convict's shoulder and picked him apart in a way so systematic it bore resemblance to the sadism of man. Whatever limb they clamped onto, they kept. Arms slopped onto the dirt, followed by legs, until the man was a limbless stump, unable to do anything other than stare in horror and wait for his rather inevitable death. Just before the man would die from loss of blood is when the monster finished him off. It was as if his fear and despair made the best spice. The hungry beast violently ripped him to pieces, eating him bones and all. The camera followed the inmates and the beast into the woods. But the man in the black mask minimized the screen, knowing that it was the open and kill that put asses in seats. The game they played of hide and seek was always hit or miss. Warden Paul Glazer was the man in the black mask and host of this macabre event. He mingled into the crowd, doing the best he could to seem as he just happened to find himself in Caleb Clearview's orbit. Though everyone wore masks, they were more ceremonial than useful in concealing anyone's identity. Now that the games had begun, the alcohol began to flow. Warden Glazer approached the bigger man who swirled a glass of red wine. Two men that the warden did not know stepped in front of him, barring his path to Caleb. When Caleb spoke to the warden directly, those in his entourage relaxed their guard slightly. I must say, this is quite a spectacle, Warden Glazer, Caleb said. The warden smiled at the compliment because when you were in any of the Clearview's good graces, you were a titan amongst men. I was just discussing with Dee Dee how curious I was of your beast. All that? Said Warden Glazer as if it weren't anything to the process. Well, I suppose I could show you. It usually takes a while before the parole board locates another inmate. They do like to take their time and savor the kill. If you'd follow me, sir, said the warden. Caleb Clearview and a number of people in his entourage followed him into the back behind the tapestries that gave this place the look of a medieval castle over that of a prison. The warden swiped a key card on a big metal door. In this room were four men wearing gray workman onesies. Each man was behind a monitor with a video game controller. Warden Glazer walked over to one of the four and asked, Is everything going smoothly? The man barely turned his attention towards the warden, but said, Yeah, it's good. Caleb Clearview nuzzled up to the beautiful young woman at his side, only half paying attention to any of it. The warden knew that he was going to have to do much more to grab his attention. He needed his approval. It was no secret that the Clearviews owned the prison, and out of all their investments, this was one of the ones they thought the least lucrative. They didn't believe the population of Clearview and the neighboring areas was great enough to warrant its existence. So whoever was in charge of the prison constantly had to find creative ways to turn a profit, lest they get fired, replaced, or worse. Caleb Clearview was at the very least curious about his monsters, and that was good for job security, but he had to turn up the wow factor if he was going to compete with his extremely beautiful girlfriend. "If you'd follow me, sir," said Warden Glazer to Caleb and his entourage. The sounds of unchecked animals assaulted the group. Caleb's security reached into their jackets defensively. "It's completely safe. These are the pins. I will show you how I came to create the beast." Caleb looked to his security as if he were fine with it. They mirrored his mood. The warden led them deeper into the cavernous prison. Behind bars were prisoners of a different kind. Lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. "How many animals do you have down here?" asked Caleb. 32. Don't get too close to that one, sir," said Warden Glazer as they passed the habitat of a hulking gorilla simmering with rage from its lightless captivity. "Have you thought about putting 100 inmates against that gorilla?" said Caleb Clearview's arm candy. Both men looked over to the woman as if to wonder why she was talking. "It was all over the internet," she said, sighing, popping gum. Caleb idly wished he had invited his wife to this event over his girlfriend. Warden Glazer opened the shutters of a closed-off lab with a remote he had in his breast pocket. When the metal grates opened, there were more cages, but also devices of science. "This is where the beasts are born," said the warden. Behind more specialized cages were creatures that spit in the face of God. There was a tiger, an ape, and a hyena with bodies of beasts, but the heads of men. "How is this possible?" said Caleb, as if the warden had finally succeeded in wrestling away his full attention. "It's not quite my invention, but Dr. Windermere's work. He studied under the wing of the finest German geneticists." "Nazis?" questioned Caleb. "Indeed. Everyone always wants to talk about the negatives of the Nazis, but never the positives." "True indeed," the warden agreed. "So how do you get them to increase in size?" "It's very technical, and I wouldn't want to bore you at a party, sir." Dee Dee made a startled, yerping sound. When the entourage looked over, there was a man in a cage chained to an electric chair. His body was covered in needles and tubes of mysterious liquids. The prisoner looked out at the impassive gawkers with an undefinable anger. "This inmate is in the beginning stages of the process, for you see, this is how we create beasts with intelligence enough to be truly dangerous." "And do you have any other beasts ready?" "No, sir. For now, we only managed to harness hyenas." "These look impressive." "Yes, and they are, but it becomes an issue of control, sir. These animals, along with the will of men, we can't bring them under control." "There are other ways to control men's mind than science, Warden," said Caleb, as if he knew how. "I'll admit, it's quite impressive, but the board is very leery about the reckless nature of your experiments. They believe that while entertaining, these fundraising parties do not cover the costs. Even with all you've seen, I'd need a guarantee you can keep this under control, Warden." Warden Glazer thought for a long moment before he went on. "If you keep the funding going, I can assure you I can keep this under control." Caleb Clearview extended his hand as if to seal a devil's bargain. They shook. As they were on the way back up to the party proper, Warden Glazer's radio chirped. "Sir, we have an issue," came the voice on the other end. "I'm on my way." When the black-masked warden stepped into the party, the guests were in silent rapture with the monitors. 2 inmates ran at the prison, while the 2 cackling hyena beasts ran them down. COs created a beachhead position around the parking lot. They opened fire on the beast, who were not as under control as was believed. The inmates scrambled to a Hummer while the 2 huge beasts, lovingly referred to as the parole board, savaged their ranks. It was quick and violent. Some of the COs died before a man broke from the crowd and whistled, bringing the rampaging monsters under control. All the while this chaos ensued, the two inmates somehow drove off in a Hummer while the parole board bounded after them. The crowd clapped, unsure if this was all a scripted event, but the warden guiltily looked to Caleb Clearview and cleared his throat nervously. Caleb's men grabbed the warden under both arms very casually. "I think we have our next test subject," said Caleb. You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed the trip.